Today, I'm going to show you guys how to draw this really awesome sea turtle in your sketchbook. But first, we're going to draw a bunch of really ugly sea turtles. Today, we're talking about using reference to level up your art. So today I'm going to be doing a lot of bad drawing, and that's okay. My point today is to illustrate how helpful reference is and how it can make a big difference in your art. If you don't have a photo memory of the entire world, today is for you. We're going to start with a little exercise. I wanted this to be completely random, not something that I'm familiar with or that I have a lot of experience with. So we're going to go to a random word generator, and so long as they're not giving us an action, I think we should be able to do it, right? So we have one thing to draw. The game is Pictionary. The category is easy. Room. Okay, so I'm going to give myself 60 seconds. All right, ready? Let's go. This is from memory, no reference. Okay, that's about 10 seconds in. And I actually have drawn a lot of brooms for 7-inch Cara. So I actually do have a pretty good idea of what a broom in general should look like. Let's do a witch's broom next because, hey, we still got time. Usually I am the worst at Pictionary. And I'm just kind of starting by sketching in the basic forms, get it down real quick, and then refining things as I have time. And both of these are recognizable as brooms. Like you would look at them and you'd be like, oh, the one on the left is a shot broom, the one on the right might be a witch's broom. Like, you know it's a broom. But by using reference, we can take these schemas, these things that people think they know how to draw, we can take these schemas and transform them into something that looks a lot better, even if you're still doing a cartoony art style. Now, I feel like broom was kind of too easy, so I am going to do it again. Jail. Ooh, okay. All right, so we've got 1 minute. The first time I played Pictionary, I was absolutely horrible. I cared way too much about it looking good. It gave me a lot of anxiety, and nobody could guess what I was doing. Now it's all about capturing those ideas as quickly as possible. And when I'm teaching, just in general, if we're teaching drawing classes, playing a game of Pictionary in the beginning is a great way to help loosen things up, because drawing for schema, drawing for quick and easy understandability is still important. And you don't have to be an amazing artist to be able to draw for comprehension. And then another thing to consider is also, are we drawing what people think they know and they're going to immediately recognize it? Or are we going to draw things more realistically? So that also felt kind of like an easy one. I'm going to go... Let's go one more time. These are so quick. Football. 1 minute. Now, I want to say that if you draw like this might just be good enough. There isn't anything inherently wrong with this, and being able to communicate visually, even in a really rudimentary form, is still helpful and still valuable. Just because you don't have the most detailed art style, it does not mean you're a bad artist. Today isn't about putting down cartooning. The more you can cartoon, the better, especially if you need to convey a complex topic to someone, more complex than broom, jail, and football. But it's also about taking these simplified things and making them just a little bit better by using reference. I'm gonna cheat. We're gonna do one more. Sea turtle. Perfect. I was hoping I would get an animal. Mostly because animals have a lot of variation, right? You can think you know what a sea turtle looks like, and then look up a sea turtle and realize, even if you've drawn turtles before, you have no idea what a sea turtle actually looks like. And then there's different types of sea turtles, right? We have loggerheads, we have leatherbacks. Now, this kind of loose schematic, just working on what our imagination remembers, this type of drawing is really useful for knocking out thumbnails, getting down concepts, because it's just enough information to get the point across, but you're not spending a lot of time researching something, looking into something that maybe you're not going to want to draw it after all. So this stage, this 60-second quick sketch, still has a lot of validity, and I never even hit go. Hopefully that was a minute. You guys, let me know. Keep me honest. I got so distracted. So I like the sea turtle idea. So now I want to redraw the sea turtle from my own memory without looking up reference. And honestly, it might not get much better than this because I don't have a very good idea of what a sea turtle looks like. Drawing a sea turtle from my own memory, that's going to be kind of a challenge because I have a little bit of aphantasia. I don't have a super great picture memory. And this is one of the reasons I am such an advocate for referencing things. So my sea turtles are going to be kind of bad. But you know, that is part of what we're doing here today. We're going to make some bad art so that we can reference it and make some better art. I'm just going to do a few different doodles of a sea turtle from memory, and I may also redraw the brooms just a little bit better from memory, just so, you know, I don't totally embarrass myself. And then we're going to practice drawing them from reference. You guys can see there is a lot I don't know about drawing sea turtles. I basically know nothing, apparently, about what sea turtles look like. This is part of the reason why if anybody ever tells you that real artists don't use reference or good artists don't use reference, they're just lying to you. Photorealistic artists use reference. Cartoony artists use reference. Artists use reference. Because otherwise, you end up with stuff that looks like this. And sure, for things that you've drawn a million times, like the broom I'm about to draw, you definitely have a pretty good idea of what it looks like. You can fake it really well. But for something that you might be less familiar with, maybe because you don't live in a place where there are sea turtles, or you don't have access to an aquarium, or you're just not that interested in sea turtles, so you don't really have any idea what they look like, and maybe you have a job assignment or a class assignment where you're required to draw them, suddenly you gotta figure out how, and reference is going to help you with that. So we're gonna draw the broom, I gotta redeem myself a little bit, and then we're gonna talk about drawing from reference. So it's pretty obvious that I don't really know what sea turtles look like, right? We could see this and we could see our reference. And we've got some great reference photos that we can work with. And depending on the scope of your project, like let's say you're creating a character who is a sea turtle, you might want to do hundreds of studies. You might want to do a lot of realistic, semi-realistic, cartoony studies while you try to find the vibe that you want for the project. If you are designing a toy, you're going to be drawing over and over and over again, working from reference and then progressively loosening it up and taking notes. If you're just drawing it one time for an illustration, you may just need that one reference or maybe one or two reference images that are pretty close to what you're looking to do, and you just need to transform it a little bit to make it your own. So how much you're going to need reference is really going to kind of vary based on what you're trying to do. So there is so much about sea turtles that I don't know, and I want to kind of start out with a few different skills that you can develop when drawing from reference. We're going to start with silhouette, and I think I had a pretty decent idea of what a generic sea turtle silhouette looks like, but I'm going to work with this image here. We don't actually need to blow it up, and we're going to just kind of sketch in the basics really lightly. You can do it larger, you can do it smaller. It really kind of just depends. And you want to think of this kind of like the shadow of the sea turtle, right? We're blocking in the major forms. We're paying attention to the shape of the shell. We're paying attention to the shape of the head and how the head enters the neck. We're really not going for any details here. This is particularly helpful when you are cartooning, because this is going to be kind of your very basics. This is going to be where we start to simplify, where we start to caricature, where we start to make it our own. It's also going to be a good way to kind of get an understanding of what we're drawing and how to make it understandable, even when it's really simplified, or even if it's drawn at a distance or at a smaller scale. Filling it in like this also helps simplify the form and kind of reduce it to its simplest parts. You guys also saw that I was struggling with drawing a sea turtle on its side, like a profile view. So we're going to do another one. This isn't a perfect profile view, but it should give me a pretty good idea of how a sea turtle looks. And I'm holding my pencil loosely and kind of to the side, partially because I have found that this helps me put less strain on my hand, and I have developed arthritis problems as a result of Sjogren's. So, you know, less strain is great, but also it helps me keep everything light, sketchy, and uncommitted, which is what we're kind of going for in this exploratory reference stage. So you guys already saw my visual memory is pretty bad, and I know that. That is something that I struggle with when I was at SCAD and we had assignments where we weren't allowed to use our smartphones, and we didn't have access to computers for a lot of these classes, and they would tell us to draw something off the top of our head. I would really, really struggle with it, and I would have to redo it later on when I got home. So for somebody like me who has poor visual memory, the ability to reference things is really important. So basically in class, I would just focus on getting down the thumbnail sketch, the gesture and the gist of what I was going for, and then I would have to spend a lot of time outside of class researching it and redrawing it and referencing it. So next, I wanted to talk about drawing from reference and creating a stick figure. Now, turtles, you can kind of do that. It's more challenging because so much of their torso and body is kind of hidden by the shell. I'm going to attempt it. If I'm really struggling with it, we may have to kind of switch over to an animal that has a more obvious skeleture. For the stick figure though, it is still really about kind of just condensing things, and stick figures are really helpful in a way that silhouettes are not, because stick figures can be posed. Silhouettes, some people do like block in the silhouette first and then define the figure from there, and that's great if that's the way your brain works. My brain doesn't quite work that way. It prefers the stick figures first. So you got to find the method that works for you, and that's where practicing and filling up sketchbooks and trying different things and learning different methods can be hugely helpful. So for our stick figure, I actually want to do a couple. We're going to start with this same top view that we did with the silhouette. So it's going to be pretty similar to the silhouette. And we're really looking mostly at major forms. So we're going to use this kind of shield shape for the shell. You don't even have to do that little, you see how it curves down here at the bottom? For a stick figure, you don't even have to do that. And you can just start with these kind of placement sticks, just so that you can figure out where everything's going. And then we'll draw a head here. So very, very simple. This is going to be more useful. Like, let's do this side view here. So we're going to block in the shell, and then we're going to put our sticks just to kind of block in the shapes. So these are great for capturing a pose, capturing movement that you can refine later. It's not meant to be the whole thing. So now I want to demonstrate for you guys. I'm trying to find a good one. I mean, they're all good ones, right? But it's a lot of really dynamic views, which is harder to demonstrate exactly what we're talking about. But I may end up drawing a more dynamic view for you guys anyway, because they're just so cool. We're going to take this one over here, and we are going to go from stick figure to a volumetrically rendered, volumetrically drawn sea turtle. The stick figure in this instance is going to be really helpful because it's going to help us kind of figure out what proportion things should be in, where we should place things, where everything's going to go, and we may need to make some revisions as we go. I'm drawing with a color pencil, and that is because I don't want to waste my time erasing. I would rather redraw it and study what the mistakes that I made from the first one. So these flippers, they're not really flippers, right? It's their forearms. So it's kind of hard to see in this instance, like what's going on volumetrically with these forms. I'm going to give it a best guess. This would be another reason why if you were going to draw this as a character of your own multiple times, you would want to do a bunch of studies. You really want to understand how these animals are built. And at this point, we're not really thinking about the scales. We're just trying to think about how to recreate this sea turtle volumetrically. We're thinking about, you know, the size and the shape of the shell, how much it goes up in relation to the top of the head. Maybe we're thinking about where the nose goes. We're not thinking about necessarily the shell pattern at this point. We're just kind of trying to capture the basics. Now, every artist works differently. Artists have different inspiration. If you want to start by doing like a sketch of the scale pattern on like their flippers, go for it. Like whatever makes art more accessible for you, that's awesome. So something I am noticing is that these are actually kind of like cactus paddles. So they are thin and then they have a little bit of depth, which makes sense because they're catching the water and it's propelling the turtle forward. And that's something else to think about if we're drawing animals, is like, what function does this play in the environment? How is this useful to the animal? Now, I'm not drawing the eyes to scale, and at this point, I'm not really even worried too much about the scale pattern. Sorry, it was a little hard for me to see. I had to physically move to see it. Also, if you need to zoom in, if you need to, oh, they have these like, these kind of mouths, right? If you need to adjust your resolution, like whatever you need, go for it. So for right now, to help me better understand this animal volumetrically, the shapes that are in play, I am going to just use the side of my pencil just to shade it a little bit. It's not, my intention is not great art. My intention is loose sketchbook studies so I can understand what I'm drawing. Do I do this for every single thing that I draw? No, but if I'm creating a character and I want to be able to draw them more realistically, consistently, I'm definitely going to do this. But also, just kind of picking a random animal, a random plant, whatever, from like a word generator, a Pictionary generator, a prompt generator, and spending time in your sketchbook, just kind of researching them, studying them, figuring things out about them. Not only is that a great way to fill up a sketchbook, but it's also a great way to kind of hone your work as an artist. If you draw larger, you have room for more details. If you draw smaller, you can cram more on the page. I like to work with really cheap sketchbooks because it kind of, I don't feel the need for perfect. I can fill it with a bunch of bad sketches, take notes, and learn what I need to learn so that I can refer to them later on. So I do want to do a more detailed sketch of a sea turtle, and I think now would be a great opportunity maybe for us to do one of these more dynamic views. So I actually have a really hard time talking and drawing at the same time. It just kind of overrides the same part of my brain. So there's going to be a part in this where I'm going to just go time lapse, and I may or may not narrate over it, kind of depending on what we need. So right now I am just kind of blocking in loosely, and see, I didn't give myself enough room. That's okay. The flipper kind of gets clipped anyway, but it would be why we would block, so we could figure out, oh hey, I didn't give myself enough room to draw this. Let me draw it all over again. Let me tear this out so I can reference it and make those adjustments on, you know, the next page of my sketchbook. And this is, again, why I use cheaper sketchbooks, is because no big deal. I don't care. It's a Strathmore sketchbook. Like, they're relatively inexpensive. And right now, I'm just loosely blocking in the forms, trying to kind of capture what's going on. It's a decent block in. So now I'm going to start kind of figuring things out more volumetrically. Now, maybe that means I need to draw out the forms using cylinders, using spheres, using pyramids, or maybe it just means I need to kind of denote where the edges are. And we did the Pictionary randomized pick because I didn't want to lean on something I'm comfortable with and it have the possibility of turning out better than it really should have. Like, the whole point of this is to demonstrate how hard it can be to draw some things, and it depends on the person and their interests and what they're drawing at the time, how hard it can be for some people to draw things without reference, and how reference can really help you level up. And part of this was inspired by, we're actually teaching an art squad on this very topic, so this is actually to help me kind of prepare for it. But also, I've been reading a lot of influential artists' books, and very, very few of them talk about reference. And I found that really frustrating and kind of annoying. So I wanted to kind of create a tutorial where we kind of address this. We kind of, you know, see reasons why you might want to use reference, and also to show you guys that using reference and a few of the skills that I showed you guys today can really help with your art, and it can really help with your development. I want to kind of give you guys the keys to the kingdom of drawing. I mean, you got to put the legwork in, you got to do the study, and you got to do the work. But sometimes just knowing what other artists are doing, what kind of methods they're using, how they're thinking about things can make things a little bit easier. So at this point, I want to see what's going on with this turtle's eye. It kind of looks like we have, like, what would be the white of our eye is black on this turtle, and then we have some color, and then we have the iris, but I don't really know what I'm looking at. It's kind of looking like that with this one here. So this is where having multiple references, oh, this is not a sea turtle. This is why having multiple references can be really helpful, is it gives you a better idea of what's actually going on. Now, is that what we're seeing here? No, but that's okay. We have learned something that we can now bring to this illustration. We have a better understanding of what's going on with this turtle, what's going on with its eyes, and how we might want to handle that. So multiple reference images, very helpful. So at this point, I have everything kind of blocked in. So what I want to do is I want to start refining details. And there is a lot of texture going on with this sea turtle. And generally I work in color. So this would be, I would leave this like it is and then move in with color. And I could grab some Copic markers. We could do that with color. That is a choice. We could do it as a monochrome study. You know, it kind of depends on what you're feeling, what you're vibing with. You can get mixed media with it. It is whatever is useful for you. So I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to start with the color pencil, and then I may bring some Copics in because honestly, I want to start working more mixed media in my sketchbook and bringing more of those ideas in and make it a little bit more vibrant and also make it more of a chance for me to try things out and learn. Now, something that's really beautiful about drawing anything from reference, whether you are going outside and you're drawing something like a plein air sketch, if you're doing a still life, whatever, is that it is an exercise in mindfulness. You are noticing things about what you're drawing. You're appreciating things about what you're drawing. You're looking at, for example, the size of the scales. We're noticing, oh, this turtle isn't just brown. There's olive green notes and yellow notes and dark brown notes. And it's hard for me to actually notice those things while I'm talking to you guys about them just because of the way that my ADHD brain works. But it's something I really enjoy and I find it really restful and meditative. And it's something that I think many people can learn how to do. Even people who don't think of themselves as artists can learn to do this and enjoy this and benefit from this. So that's one of the reasons I get kind of about more popular artists not even mentioning reference, not even mentioning that they reference something, not mentioning when they do, not encouraging others to do the same, is because you are losing a part of the process that is important. It helps you make better art and is also just intensely rewarding. So I want to get at this with some alcohol markers. We're not going for like beautiful, we're going for fun. You could opt to do like a color study with contrasting colors, yellow and blue. You could opt to do a lighting study and really just focusing on conveying kind of the olive tone of our sea turtle versus the really beautiful aqua blue background. You have a lot of different ways that you can approach this, and it really kind of depends on what your goals are for this. We have some really cool atmospheric lighting going on with this illustration, so I kind of wanted to start by doing a study of that. And I'm starting with a blue that's pretty similar in hue to what we're seeing. And I'm also trying to kind of convey the motion of the water around the sea turtle and build up that color a bit. This isn't meant to be like a fully rendered marker study. It's just a marker study, and I just wanted to kind of practice color picking and kind of eyeballing what the colors should look like. So I'm kind of starting out with a custom color. I believe this is Citrus from Ranger in a Copic sketch, and I'm just kind of laying down what looked like to me the mid-tone on our turtle. And I'm kind of thinking about it and I'm like, okay, I need some lighter colors. So I grabbed putty, and putty was a little bit too dark for the lightest of the areas, but it was kind of good as like the other mid-tone. And then I grabbed, it was probably sand or bisque. It doesn't really matter. It's a warmish color for our absolute lightest tones. I can then go back over and add some of a darker olive green. It's not quite in the olive green zone yet. It might be like a lime, and then kind of add in a sage green color as we're building up our shadows. So for me, starting at that mid-tone, no, you can't really work a whole lot lighter once you've established a mid-tone in markers, but it kind of gives us an area to start from, and we can go darker and kind of push that mid-tone to become our lightest tone if necessary. You can also use Blender to kind of push that mid-tone back a little bit in color, lighten it up a little bit. One of the things I really wanted to focus on studying if I was going to use marker for this is I wanted to focus on the scales and the texture, because that's actually not something I focus on too much in my regular work, is conveying texture. So I wanted to make sure I did that. And one of the tricks I wanted to try out was, so for some of these scales, you can see that they actually have like a rim of a darker color. So I wanted to try doing that in marker, where you just literally draw like a circle around the scale, and that's going to make it look like a scale rather than coloring it in as an individual scale. And it's going to give us that color contrast that I was kind of looking for. Now, the real trick here is making sure you get dark enough that you can get your contrast. And that was something I really struggled with. I'm pulling out progressively darker browns and even pulling out blacks, trying to get that contrast dark enough. Then I decided to throw some of that original sea color on our turtle because it's really influencing the lighting on the turtle, and I wanted to reflect that. So now I have a pretty sweet sea turtle in my sketchbook, and before this I'd never really drawn a sea turtle before. I took some skills that I had from just drawing in general, utilizing silhouette, analyzing the pose using stick figures, doing some volumetric studies, and I was able to draw a fairly passable sea turtle, far better than my first attempts that we did with no reference whatsoever. Let's revisit that really quick just to humble me a little bit. This was my first sea turtle. This was my second sea turtle. And this is what I was able to draw with some study, some reference, and some practice. You guys saw how really bad those sketches from my memory of what a sea turtle kind of sort of looks like from having read National Geographic as a girl versus what we're able to do when we do a little bit of research, we spend a little bit of time, and we actually have a reference image that we can look at. So I hope that this makes reference a little bit more appealing to you guys. I also hope it normalizes it. The reference is bad, and it's something that only bad fake artists do. Discourse is a lie. I really wish other artists would not perpetrate that. Most professionals do not spread that rumor and don't, adhere to it, but they're also generally not aware that it's making the rounds because, they're busy. I hear it because I hear it from my students, and YouTube thinks I want that kind of stuff recommended to me. Maybe they're right. So I hope that this makes drawing more attainable to you guys, sketching more attainable to you guys, sketchbook exercises more attainable to you guys. I believe in you. You just need to put the time, effort, and energy into what you're drawing, and I know it can turn out awesome. And if you are drawing from your imagination, you can take real world examples of characteristics of your characters or their environment and their clothing. You can reference a myriad of things and bring that into your work to make it richer. We are all on this journey to become better artists, to learn and to grow. And I hope that today's, I don't know if I can really call this a tutorial. I do have some exercises for you guys to do, like using a random word generator to throw a prompt at you and then spend time drawing it in 60 seconds, drawing it from your own memory, and then doing some studies and maybe doing a referenced piece. I think that will help you out a lot. It's something I need to be working back into my own art routine because I'm really happy with how this turned out, considering it didn't really take that long. I have never drawn a sea turtle before, and now I have something kind of cool in my sketchbook that I'm actually a little bit proud of. That is super win-win for everyone. We had a bunch of really ugly drawings that had to come before it, but that is just art, and that is just learning how to make art. And if we only ever draw the things we're good at or comfortable with, then we have a really small window of things that we're actually capable of drawing. So I have some more art tutorials for you guys, make sure you check the description down below. Make sure you check the cards. And if this is something that you guys would like me to do as a stream, where we do like a random word generator and we work through all these exercises together, let me know that in the comments as well, because I actually had a lot of fun doing this. I'm really pleased with how it turned out. And I think doing it as a stream would actually hold me to doing it at least every so often, so that I would be doing it and maybe it would encourage you guys to do it. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. I hope this was helpful, useful, and informative for you guys. And I hope that you guys will strongly consider utilizing and admitting that you use reference when you make art. Have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.